In print on demand, have you ever noticed how the same phrases you've seen before, seem to pop up out of nowhere, become winning products, seemingly scale to millions of dollars in sales, and then poof, they just vanish out of nowhere? I'm Michael Chris, the CEO of Shine On and Seven Figure Merchant, and I've watched 5 years of internal sales data prove one thing. Every single winning product seems to follow the same repeatable cycle that I'm calling the trend loop. If you give me 10 minutes of your time, I'm going to show you how to spot these trends before they peak so you can take advantage of them. And I'm also going to show you how there's real gold in going after dormant phrases and dormant products that are ready to come back. Now, in my time as CEO of Shine On, what I've seen is that it's like 80% of all the sales in print on demand are driven by the same 20% of phrases. If I had to guess, there are maybe 30 phrases in the entire print-on-demand giftables niche that drive almost all of the sales. Look, here are 2 phrases that I found in 5 seconds on Pinterest. Tell me if you recognize these. To my wife, you are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, smarter than you think, and loved more than you know. If I could give you one thing in life, I would give you the ability to see yourself through my eyes. Only then would you realize how special you are to me. I'm telling you, if I have read that phrase once, I've read that phrase a million freaking times. I've seen this thing pop up again and again and again inside of print on demand. Tell me if you recognize this other one. To my wife, once upon a time, I became yours and you became mine. And we'll stay together through both the tears and laughter because that's what they call happily ever after. I'm so in love with every little thing about you. I love you forever and always. Again, I'm telling you, I've seen this phrase 10 million freaking times, right? It's like they just kind of cycle and they pop up again. So I'm calling this the trend loop. Now, there are 4 stages to the trend loop. If you like AI-powered print-on-demand content just like this, make sure you click the first link in the description below and sign up for my email list. I send out daily emails with content just like this. Every single new trend and every single new, print-on-demand product starts out in what I'm calling the emergent stage. Now, this is when the product initially starts to gain traction again. So you have a merchant, they test a phrase, they get a couple sales on it during their test window, and then they start to slowly but surely add additional ad spend to that particular phrase. This is when the phrase is becoming emergent. Right? There are signals coming from the market that's saying like, hey, this might be a winner. And then, as can be expected, the merchant slowly increases ad spend. And then the next stage is what I call peak. Now, this is when the product is achieving its lowest customer acquisition costs. You're having the highest conversion rate. Your CPMs are pretty low. And for the most part, the first merchant is still the primary, beneficiary of this product. They're the ones reaping most of the rewards. They found it, they're profiting from it now. But also, as you hit peak, this is also when it becomes almost impossible to avoid this product in news feeds, spy tools, in product research, etc. And this is where your competitors are going to start to flood in. So from here to here, it's really good profit for the original merchant. But then you have what I call saturation. And so this is where other merchants start to copy this product, right? And as they copy the product, they basically make the product a bit of a commodity and they start to create downward price pressure on the product. This is where your conversion rates are going to start to decrease. This is where customer acquisition costs are going to start to increase. And the product itself is becoming less and less profitable for the original merchant. Now, there is something I want to point out about this stage, and that is, in my experience in print on demand, typically the merchant that finds the product and scales it first benefits the most, for sure. And when copycats come in my experience, it's usually only a handful of copycats that are actually able to get to marginal profitability on that product. It's like the algorithms are smart enough to know, hey, this guy over here found it, and they've already optimized the algorithm and like his account around that particular product. And so they send him all the best traffic, and then everyone else is just kind of picking up table scraps. So the time between when a product is emergent to when a product reaches saturation in my experience, is between 2 weeks and 3 months. And it really just depends on the time of year. It depends on the niche. It depends on, the whether or not that particular phrase or product has been seen before. I mean, there are a ton of factors that really go into the time frame here. But this time frame, make no mistake about it, is very profitable for the original merchant. This is assuming that they get a product that truly is emergent and they're able to take it to a peak, and then they kind of ride it through to saturation before they turn their ads off. Everybody's mileage is different. It takes skill, effort, probably a little bit of luck to find one of these winning products. But if you can lock just one of these in a year, I mean, they can be worth 6, maybe even 7 figures, the right winning product, right? Everyone's mileage varies. Riches are not just going to fall out of the sky. Just because you do print on demand, your success isn't guaranteed, anything like that. But with hard work, with skill, with effort, with lots of failure, and with some luck, you can find this type of success. And that's why people are in the print on demand game. It's to find these winning products and then scale them to the moon before saturation comes in. So just to make sure I'm super clear here, every single print on demand product follows kind of this bell curve, right? So back here is where you find like an emergent product, right? And this is where the market is starting to tell you, hey, we like this product, and you're getting some of those initial sales. And then I actually think peak is somewhere over here. Now I understand that, just intuitively, you'd think peak is at the top. I actually think up here is where saturation tends to start. I think somewhere between here and here is where saturation happens. And then it will just get more and more saturated as you ride down the back of the bell curve. But somewhere over here is your lowest customer acquisition costs. And this is also where you have your highest conversion rate. It's back over here. And then everything gets more and more difficult as you go down the backside of the bell curve here. So I think, if you've ever had a winning product, this is probably resonating with you. You understand the bell curve. It's everything here is probably making a ton of sense. Now, there's one more stage to the trend loop, and this is actually where I think most of the gold is. So you're going to dig this. So the last stage of the trend loop is what I'm calling the dormancy stage. The dormancy stage. So after a product gets saturated, everybody kind of gives up on it. The product goes kind of into dormancy, and this is where, most people are going to move on to the next product. And that's okay, because that's actually the right move. This is what I would suggest that you do here at this particular stage. And, you're going to go on, you're going to test more things, and hopefully you find another emergent product. But here is where things get interesting. You got to remember how I said it's like 80% of all the sales in print on demand come from the same 20% of products. It's like 30 phrases drive the majority of sales in the giftable space. So like at Shine On, we do tons of message card jewelry. It's like 30 phrases that drive almost all of those sales. Now, most of the time, those phrases, they go through this cycle, right? So the phrase is emergent, and then it peaks, and then it gets saturated, and it goes into dormancy, right? And it's going to hang out in this dormancy section until it's ready to come back out again, right? You see where I'm going with this? There are a few different ways to make money in print on demand. You can focus on the emergent products, right? And you can try to catch stuff on its way up and profit from it. You can also create your own phrases, right? I've seen people do that. I don't recommend it for a beginner because most people think they're a poet or a songwriter or something, and they're not. But another way is you can find phrases that are dormant and ready to come back. And this is actually where I think the real gold is in print on demand. And look, there are a few different ways to do this. Obviously, you can look in spy tools, and then when you set your time range, look back like 2 to 3 years and see what was trending back then and see if you can bring any of that stuff back. There are similar techniques you can try on Etsy and Facebook to really dig deep and mine the gold from previous years that are ready to come back. There aren't a lot of shortcuts here. Like, you need to be familiar with your niche, and you need to have been doing product research for quite a while so that you can spot this trend and get some familiarity with it and kind of know what's on its way up. and know what's been dormant and ready to come back. And when you bring something back from dormancy, you don't have to bring it back like exactly word for word like it is. You can always try to bring it back in a new niche. You can perhaps take half the phrase and pair it with another phrase that's still dormant and see if you can bring this new kind of like recombined Franken phrase back to life. There are a few different techniques you can try to get something to go from dormant back to emergent again. You essentially are like waking it up from hibernation. But I think understanding this loop is critical for your success if you're a print-on-demand merchant. This is the entire life cycle of a product, the entire life cycle of new phrases that sell. All right, I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, do me a solid, like, subscribe, do all that fancy stuff here on YouTube. Helps me in the algorithm, and I'll catch you in the next one.